Every species in the galaxy had legends. Humanity had warnings. The Empire laughed at Earth's myth until the myth woke up. The Empire cataloged myths the same way it cataloged extinct species, primitive stories, exaggerated fears. Legends born from ignorance. So when intelligence reports mentioned an ancient human prototype, Imperial analysts dismissed it instantly. Humans were young, divided, technologically inconsistent. They didn't build legends, they built excuses. What the Empire never understood was this: humans didn't call it a weapon, they didn't call it a god. They called it a mistake, one they buried deep beneath their own world and prayed they would never need again, until the Empire forced them to dig it up. The Empire first heard about the myth 6 months before the invasion. It appeared in intercepted transmissions, refugee whispers, and half-corrupted data logs from border systems that had once traded with humans. A rumor, an ancient prototype buried beneath Earth. A machine humans themselves feared. Imperial intelligence dismissed it without hesitation. Every conquered species had myths, last weapons, sleeping gods. Final curses whispered into the dark when defeat was inevitable. None of them had ever been real. When the Empire's fleets arrived above Earth, the myth was forgotten completely. Thousands of warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect geometric formation, their hulls gleaming with technology refined through millennia of conquest. Gravity bent subtly around them. Space itself seemed to make room. On the flagship Eternal Dominion, the command deck was calm, almost relaxed. "Confirm planetary assessment," Fleet Marshal Kaler said, observing Earth's rotating hologram. "Confirmed," an officer replied. "Single inhabited world, fragmented governance." "No unified planetary defense grid," another officer added, amused. "Their species still argues publicly during crises." Soft laughter rippled across the bridge. Kaler allowed himself a thin smile. "Then this will be brief." On Earth, it was anything but. Emergency alerts screamed across every nation at once. Satellites failed as alien jamming rolled across orbit. Civilian evacuation plans, never meant to be used, were activated in panic. World leaders argued, militaries scrambled, prayers were whispered in 1,000 languages. Humanity had faced disasters before, but never like this. Far beneath the surface, deeper than any modern bunker, a door that had not been opened in centuries unlocked itself. Ancient mechanisms hummed, fed by power systems older than most nations. Lights flickered on, revealing walls etched with warnings, not instructions, but pleas. Do not activate. Do not repeat the past. 6 people entered the chamber. They were not heroes. They were not chosen. They were simply the last ones with the authority to decide. Doctor. Elias Wren stopped several meters from the structure at the chamber's center. It wasn't shaped like a weapon. No barrel, no warhead. It looked more like a monument, smooth, vast, unsettling in its stillness. "The Empire will begin planetary sterilization within the hour," General Mara Voss said quietly. "They don't bother negotiating anymore," Wren nodded. "They never do with worlds they intend to erase." Another voice broke in. "So we're really considering this?" Everyone knew what this meant. The prototype had been built during humanity's first near extinction, not from aliens, but from itself. Back then, human scientists reached a terrifying conclusion. Wars didn't end because someone won. They ended because someone couldn't continue. So they designed something radical, not a weapon that destroyed fleets, but a system that destroyed the assumption of dominance. They activated it once. The result had been so absolute that humanity sealed it away immediately, records erased, engineers silenced, history rewritten. The myth was born the same day the prototype was buried. Above Earth, the Empire completed its deployment. Planet Cracker cannons aligned with surgical precision. Energy readings climbed to levels that could boil oceans. On the Eternal Dominion, Fleet Marshal Kaler watched the process with professional detachment. "Any response from the planet?" he asked. "None coherent," an officer replied. "Multiple governments broadcasting independently," Kaler nodded. "Begin countdown." In the chamber, the air felt heavier. General Voss stepped forward, her expression rigid. "If we wake it," she said, "we don't get to choose what happens next." Wren met her eyes. "We never did. We only chose whether humanity survives." Silence followed. Then the distant tremor of alien weapons charging echoed faintly through the stone. Time was gone. Voss placed her hand on the ancient interface. The surface warmed instantly. Recognition, not activation. A single line of text appeared, written in no modern language, yet somehow perfectly understood by everyone in the room. Awakening will alter the future irreversibly. Voss did not hesitate. Authorize, she said. Deep beneath earth, something ancient responded, not with rage, not with urgency, with certainty. Systems that had slept for centuries aligned themselves once more, not toward Earth, but toward the stars. Above the planet, the Empire laughed, confident, victorious, unaware. The myth was no longer a myth, and the prototype had just opened its eyes. For a heartbeat after authorization, nothing happened. No shockwave rippled through Earth, no energy spike lit the skies. No ancient weapon rose from the planet like a god from legend. On the Eternal Dominion, Fleet Marshal Kaler watched the countdown continue. 30 seconds, an officer announced calmly. The myth, it seemed, had been just that. Then the Empire's equations began to fail. Fleet Marshal, a navigation officer said slowly, confusion bleeding into his voice. Our targeting solutions are degrading. Kaler frowned. Clarify. Our weapons still function, sir, but space between us and the planet is no longer consistent. Every recalculation produces a different answer. Kaler straightened. Interference? No, sir, this isn't jamming. Reality itself is no longer agreeing with our models. The bridge went silent. Deep beneath Earth, the prototype completed its reinitialization. It did not wake the way living things did. It remembered. It recalled why it had been built. During an age when humanity realized that escalation always favored the most ruthless, and that sooner or later, someone would build an empire that could not be stopped by force alone. The prototype did not ask who was right. It asked who would continue. Human extinction probability, 96.8% threat pattern identified. Imperial expansion structure resolution. Pattern termination, the decision was instantaneous. Above Earth, the Empire fired. Planet cracker beams lanced forward, refined annihilation capable of tearing worlds apart. They never reached the atmosphere. Mid-flight, the beams simply unraveled, not deflected, not absorbed. They lost meaning. Energy dispersed into harmless noise as space itself rejected the interaction. Alarms screamed across every Imperial vessel. Weapon failure across the fleet. Spatial constants diverging. Target lock impossible. Kaler stared at the display in disbelief. Fire again. The order was obeyed. The result was the same. Across the galaxy, sensors older than the Empire reacted. Hyperspace beacons flickered. Star charts drifted out of alignment. Ancient observatories, maintained by civilizations that had never heard of Earth, recorded a subtle but undeniable truth. Something fundamental had changed. Something old had returned. The prototype did not focus on Earth's orbit. Earth was not the problem. It reached outward, not through distance, but through structure. A Velkarian strike armada positioned light years away, scheduled to arrive as reinforcement, was selected. No warning was issued. Space around the fleet redefined itself, clean, precise, absolute. Each ship became isolated in its own perfectly valid but incompatible frame of reference. From the galaxy's perspective, the fleet vanished. From the Empire's perspective, the fleet had never existed at all. On the Eternal Dominion, panic finally broke through discipline. Outer fleets are missing. We have no record of them, no debris, no energy signatures. Kaler felt something cold tighten inside him. This was not an attack. This was erasure. Back in the underground chamber, Dr. Elias Wren stared at the cascading data. It's not destroying them, he said quietly. It's removing their ability to function as a collective. General Voss swallowed. Can it be stopped? Wren shook his head. Not until the threat pattern collapses. It doesn't negotiate. Above Earth, Imperial ships drifted in confusion, engines ready, weapons charged, but unable to act meaningfully. For the first time in its long history, the Empire faced an enemy that did not fight back. It corrected. And as the prototype advanced to its next phase, the galaxy began to understand a terrifying truth. The myth had never been a story meant to scare enemies. It was a warning meant to scare humans. No celebration followed the destruction of the first invading fleet. On Earth, silence reigned. The prototype had awakened, and humanity treated that fact like a funeral, not a victory. Deep beneath the planet's crust, Inside a cavern older than recorded history, the machine rested once more. Its impossible geometry folded inward, plates sealing like a tomb. Energy readings dropped to near zero. To alien sensors, it looked dormant again. But the galaxy knew better now, because the Empire's core worlds were screaming. The galactic aftershock across 1,000 systems, military councils convened in panic. The Empire's invasion force, a fleet meant to conquer a developing world in days, had vanished in less than 30 seconds. No debris field, no escape signals, no wreckage, just absence. Then came the sensor echoes, space-time scars, gravitational distortions that refused to decay, entire regions where physics behaved nervously. Analysts reached the same conclusion independently. Earth had not defended itself. Earth had executed the fleet. And worse, it had done so with a weapon that predated modern galactic civilization. The truth leaks the Empire tried to contain the narrative. They failed. A single data shard, smuggled out by a dying scout drone, reached the neutral networks. It carried fragmented visuals, Earth's surface splitting open, light bending inward, a structure unfolding like a god stretching after a long sleep. The file spread uncontrollably. Within hours, every major species knew the name humans had tried to bury. The prototype, ancient records resurfaced, forgotten warnings. Half-erased myths from precursor civilizations that no longer existed. One phrase appeared again and again in dead languages, finally translated. When the quiet world wakes its guardian, run. Why humanity built it, the question every species asked, was the same. Why would a young species possess such a thing? The answer came not from diplomats, but from a human transmission broadcast unencrypted across open space. An old man appeared on the screen, wrinkled, calm, wearing no uniform. "You think we built it to rule you?" he said. "You're wrong." Images followed, not of conquest, but extinction, ancient Earth, skies burning, cities erased by forces not of this galaxy. Beings that fed on stars, civilizations erased so thoroughly they left no ruins. "We were almost wiped out," the man continued. "So we made a promise." The prototype was never a weapon of empire. It was a failsafe, a last answer to an enemy so terrible that humanity chose to erase itself from the stars rather than risk awakening it again. "We didn't go quiet because we were weak," he said. "We went quiet because the universe isn't ready for what wakes up when we're cornered." The transmission ended. No threats, no demands, just truth. The Empire makes a second mistake terrified, but arrogant, the Empire chose escalation. A coalition fleet, 10 times larger than the first, mobilized, not to Earth directly. They targeted humanity's outer colonies. The logic was simple: force the humans to choose between surrender or waking the monster again. The prototype did not wake, something else did. Humanity's real weapon, as the coalition fleet entered human-controlled space, their sensors lit up. Thousands of ships emerged from stealth, old designs, brutal designs. Scarred hulls that looked used, not ceremonial, crews that didn't broadcast threats or demands. Humanity had never disarmed. They had simply waited. The battle that followed was not elegant. It was efficient. Human fleets fought like a species that had practiced extinction-level warfare and never forgotten the lesson. They exploited every weakness, every assumption, every rule the galaxy took for granted. Within hours, the coalition fleet broke. Within days, the Empire sued for peace. The final warning Earth sent one final message. Short, direct, impossible to misinterpret. The prototype is not our pride. It is our shame. We will not wake it again unless forced. Do not force us. Attached was a single data file, proof that the prototype had not fully powered down. It was merely listening. Epilogue: a quiet world. Again Earth returned to silence. But now it was a respected silence. Trade lanes rerouted themselves around the Sol system without being asked. Explorers logged Earth as a restricted myth zone. Young civilizations were taught a new rule of survival. If you find a quiet planet that doesn't fear you, be afraid. Because somewhere beneath blue oceans and green continents, humanity's oldest nightmare was still asleep, and the galaxy intended to keep it that way.